Tharindu Ameresekere, Postgraduate Institute of Management Sri Lanka. Dr. Tharindu Ameresekere is a senior lecturer at the Postgraduate Institute of Management, SGP, specializing in finance, marketing, communication skills, sustainability, and digital disruption. Mr. Tharindu also has been coaching students for the CIMA Professional qualification for over 15 years. He is also founder of award-winning digital agency TAC and a national public speaking champion in Toastmasters, being the only Toastmaster in Sri Lanka to be ranked #1 in 3 competition categories. In 2015, he won the District 82 Table Topics Championship, and in 2023, the double championship in Humorous Speaking and International Speech Contest. He also hosted the weekend business talk show Bisnomics on TV1. His publication in academia has been recognized in the AIB South Asian Conference 2022, hosted by the Indian Institute of Management, the Global Winter Business Conference in France, and the World Education Summit in Malaysia. Dr. Tharindu has obtained his first degree in computer science with honors from University of Staffordshire and his MBA in marketing from the University of Colombo and his master's in project management from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia. He has also completed the CIMA Management Accounting qualification as well as the PQHRM qualification for CIBM and is also a certified NLP coach from the American Board of NLP. For Mr. Tharindu, the time is yours.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Absolute pleasure to be speaking at this conference, the 4th International WIMAYA 2024 conference. Pleasure to be here. Thank you to everyone who invited me. So the topic, the theme seems quite apt. Community-centric management, aligning organizational goals with the social needs of today. In my allotted time, I hope to deliver my presentation using about 15 to 20 minutes and then open the forum for any questions that may be there. This theme is quite aligned with my area of doctoral research as well. My doctoral research is currently focused on trying to see how we could actually leverage on the sustainability efforts of hospitality brands in Sri Lanka to attract the younger travelers, which is mainly the Generation Z and Generation Y travelers. It is quite an under-researched area, even globally, and even in this part of the world, not much research has been done to see how to attract younger customers using and leveraging on the sustainability efforts of brands. And for this purpose, for this reason, my presentation today will also be focused on this area, but more general to business and not just for the hospitality sector. I hope I am clearly audible and visible. And I believe you can see my slideshow now. All right, perfect. Thank you. So moving on, the focus I'm having today is on sustainability as a strategy to attract the younger generations, generally in business. But let's first take a look at a few facts. Now, first of all, what exactly is sustainability, and what do we mean by the term of sustainability? That's the first question. So there are multiple definitions. Of course, we have the Brundtland Commission definition and everything, but we say that sustainability leads to the management of all resources in a way that economic, social, and aesthetic needs get fulfilled. That's according to WTO, World Trade Organization. And giving a more academic interpretation to this, we say that sustainable economic development is facilitated and social, economic, environmental well-being being maintained. So this is basically how it has been defined as by Gilmore and Simmons in 2007. End of the day, it's about making sure how we do business today does not end up disrupting or damaging how we do business tomorrow. So if you look at some of the main tipping points of the planet has seen this year, a tipping point normally, especially with regard to sustainability, climate change being a big part, a big role, and a big component in overall sustainability challenges of the world. Some of the main tipping points we've seen this year is that we've seen the melting polar ice sheets. Both Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets have shown an accelerating of the melting. Coral reefs are in a decline, right? We see in most parts of the world, coral reefs are bleaching, and we see them dying. The permafrost thaw, or the layer of more like history, which is frozen underneath our current Earth, those are melting, which creates another problem because some of the viruses from 200, 300 years ago, about which we have very limited medical knowledge about, these zombie viruses, what we call, because they are frozen and sleeping, they also begin to get released over a time period when this happens. Now imagine COVID was in 2020 and we had a similar disease, SARS, in 2003. Despite that happening, we saw that in 2020, how much of a struggle we had when trying to get rid of COVID from this world. Now imagine a virus from 300, 400 or 1,000 years ago, about which we have absolutely no idea or medical records about getting released. Just think about it. So these are some of the concerns that we see and tipping points which are alarming with regard to sustainability. We see a massive forest dieback, the deforestation happening in Amazon, the level of trees that are dying and the amount of the rainforest that is disappearing. These are causing a concern. And one of the biggest tipping points we saw in this year with regard to climate is the AMOC, that is the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. That's the current system that takes the heated waters of the south to the north and the colder waters of the north, they bring it to the south. That's how they make sure that the southern waters are not too warm, where we all can go for a nice swim and enjoy the bath, sea bath, and also that the northern waters are not too cold and that it's warm enough for some level of life to be maintained. So this is what we call as AMOC, but this system is slowing down, which means we are not far away from a future where in Asia and in countries which is closer to the equator, like my country, Sri Lanka, where the waters will be simply untouchable due to the heat. And also in the northern parts of the world, like in Scandinavia and all, the waters will simply be in the oceans will be too cold for any kind of life to be there. So and that, I would say, has been the biggest tipping point of this whole year out of everything that we've seen. So clearly we have a problem and the problem is accelerating. We are also on track. 2024 is also on track to be the warmest year, right, on record. So we say that the global mean temperature in 2024 is on track to outstrip the temperature of 2023. So this is an accelerating problem and something which needs our attention. You may have seen this picture. This is actually the Sahara Desert. I want to make a point here that a lot of the people are in fact bringing this as a concern. We saw one of the biggest anti-climate change thinkers, Donald Trump, is now in charge of US from next year. But interestingly, a lot of them bring this point as well, that if climate change is such a problem, how come the deserts are turning green? Because we see the Sahara Desert and we see so many deserts in Australia and so many different parts of the world actually turning green. So what exactly is the problem? So this actually scientifically explaining, is a sign that the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is rising. And when the amount of CO2 is rising, the photosynthesis process by which they convert the sunlight into vegetation, that process works faster. So that's why we are seeing more parts of deserts forming into and dry lands becoming green. But one needs to keep in mind that's not necessarily a good thing, because when they turn green, it also means that they will see. Deserts are meant to serve a very important, I would say, biosphere purpose, which is also water preservation, because deserts don't use water resources and it saves scarce water for other purposes. However, when deserts turn green, they will end up sucking out and using whatever the remaining water resources in the planet, which is not something that is great from an environmental or social perspective. So a lot of people are bringing this up saying, look, there's no problem with the environment, deserts are turning green, but it's not showing that things are getting better. It's only like an indicator that things are actually not going as planned. So today, the biggest shift we see is from capitalism to responsible capitalism. How can businesses really be you don't have to become a socialist business, or you don't have to always adopt sociological ideologies in business, but the real question has become, how can we shift to responsible capitalism, where we bring in value to our shareholders while also adding value to other stakeholders of the business. So this has become the main part, the main component, and the main element today in business. So since my keynote is addressing about how we can attract the younger populations through our sustainability strategies, let's look at the different populations of the world. So we have those who are born before 1946, we call them the builders. The ones who are born after 1946 to 64, whom we call the baby boomers. And then we have the generation X, 65 to 79. Gen Y, also known as millennials, like me, from 1980 to 1994. We have generation Z from 95 to 2009. And today we have generation Alpha, which is from 2010 to 2024. So Gen Alpha is still more in their teenage years as at now. So they are not necessarily into the consumerism yet. But of course, Gen Y and Gen Z are the dominant consumer groups in the world right now. So if you look at some of the supporting literature to share, we say that generation Z is the most concerned generation about the planet's well-being and inspires others to make purchasing decisions that prioritize sustainability. Also, while studies specifically from the hospitality sector, which is my area of research for my doctorate, we say that while studies identify that consumers who have a positive predisposition towards sustainability are more willing to adopt green tourism behavior, it also shows that studies have not yet been carried out on what are the strategies and tactics we could use to really get those concerned customers to come and interact with us, buy from us. So that's an area, how to convert this interest towards sustainability into actual purchasing behavior, especially in the luxury sector and even more especially in the luxury hospitality sector. This has become the key area of study for today for a lot of researchers, and I'm one of them who are actually following it, because in this part of the world, there are some very good papers. In fact, one of my research papers I'm referring to is about this sector in Indonesia. And if anyone is interested, I can share that. But especially with regard to my country, Sri Lanka, the amount of empirical evidence available is very low on this area, because people are very quick to dismiss and say, oh, Gen Z, do they really spend on luxury hotels and all? But there is a segment that are willing to, but what drives them to do that spending and consumption based on sustainability in the hospitality sector is under research. So I just wanted to share this support literature here. I know there are many scholars here. There are aspiring scholars. This is an area, luxury and sustainability is an area which is very much under research and has a lot of potential and scope for research in the future. We also see massive failures from governments. Recently, the COP29 Conference of Parties, the main sustainability conference of the world, was concluded in Baku, Azerbaijan. And some countries did get together and agree and come up with a final deal where they agreed to deliver $300 billion each year to help the developing countries. But countries like India have shown massive dissatisfaction because they feel that it's an unfair deal and that the developing world is having to bear the cost of the pollution by the developed world. So we see governments are also at loggerheads, and once Donald Trump comes into power, we don't know what America's contribution to this will be. And if America drops out, then what about the other countries? That has become a major concern. So there's another trend that we see, that most of these labels are actually losing trust. Right? All these things that say it's recycle 6 times, all these different logos are now today losing trust. And you have to understand that the younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, are way more educated on these matters compared with the previous generations. Like, they will read, they'll be updated. It's very hard for brands to just put a label and get away. For example, by now, we've all discovered that when hotels say to recycle or to save water, don't reuse the towel, we figured out by now that it's just a tactic for them to save their costs, and that there is not much of recycling work actually happening there. So these are what we categorize as greenwashing, and the whole idea is to prevent greenwashing from taking place, right? And the modern younger generations are quite attuned to these, and they are not going to get swayed away by fancy labels. So what are the strategies that we, having looked at the problem and having actually seen the potential for this area, what are the real strategies for sustainability as a way of business? Couple of things comes to our mind. Well, firstly, the transparent communication. Young consumers value transparency. Be very open with what you are doing, with your, let's say, current levels of pollution, and at present, what you are doing to support the environment. And most importantly, how is it that you are helping the community around you? So be very transparent and open. If you are having emissions, show what your emissions are and what you are doing every year to kind of bring it down. There is also expectations for ethical practices. Today, most of the cosmetic brands are having to declare their supply chain and show how that nowhere in their supply chain are they using any kind of forced labor or animal testing like that. Also, innovative products. We, in fact, we use a term for this called the sustainability sweet spot. That means, can we come up with products, can we come up with services which are actually able to do good to the environment and the planet, and also be of good value addition to the customers. We call it the sustainability sweet spot. A couple of brands have actually hit that. For example, Tesla. Right, it's a nice to drive car, but which is also good for the planet, the environment. So it's innovative products that are adding value to the user, plus at the same time adding massive value to the environment, the climate around us, the society around us. These things are areas that needs to be considered and explored. I have an example here with Dilma tea. Now, Dilma tea is a very. Just want to know whether everyone, any people here have heard about Dilma tea?
Yes, this is quite specialty. Yes, I love Dilma. Some variant of those.
Nice to hear that. Nice to hear that. So Dilma actually is a very good example for how they've used sustainability to attract the market, to build that connection with different consumers, because they have a massive arm for social support. Plus, and they've embedded. See, a lot of companies, they have their normal business as usual operations, and they will also have a separate area called sustainability. But smart businesses like Dilma, they integrate sustainability into the business. Sustainability is a way of life at Dilma. So how they support how they are supporting their employees to be sustainable. Moderator, I think you're trying to say something.
Okay, you have only 3 minutes left, sir.
Sure. So they have also set up climate conservation and climate monitoring centers, and they've done it as a part of their business. So today they've built a brand around the world, a brand that is known for doing good, and that's a key reason what drives customers towards their business as well. Furthermore, we see companies which are giving sustainable experiences. I'm going to share one example very soon. And influencer partnerships, we see a massive rise in organic influencers who are promoting the good brands, the good way of life, and sustainable ways for businesses. And also massive employee engagement, where today companies want their employees to go ahead and carry out sustainability measures, because they realize without employees really participating, you can't necessarily have just a sustainability department and expect for things to work out. So employees going and doing green initiatives, working with the community, these are being encouraged to give that transparency and visibility of businesses and their sustainability measures for the younger consumers to get attracted to. So this is that example I wanted to share. This is an award-winning experience in Sri Lanka called the Peko Trail. It's a 300-kilometer curated walk. But when you go in that, you meet the community, you see their way of life, you get to engage with them. And those rural communities that are not very affluent, they also benefit because they also get some kind of a revenue through this method. And because it's a completely walking experience, it is quite sustainable as well, because the emission levels are extremely low. So I wish to conclude my presentation with a very simple message that David R. Brower shared. There's no business on a dead planet. There's no business possible if your community is not being cared for. Conference is about community-centered management, aligning profit with community. And I hope my examples and the points I shared showed the importance of why businesses need to care about sustainability, why we need to care about community, and strategies possible to for that to happen. Because once again, there's no business on a dead planet, and that's exactly why business, environment, society needs to coexist. It's possible, and businesses, we need to find the strategies for it. As scholars, we need to keep sharing these points to bridge that knowledge gap and to show them the way forward. Thank you very much for having me this morning. It was an absolute pleasure to be a part of this conference. Over to you, Madam Moderator. And I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has to share.
Thank you, Dr. Tharindu Ameresekere. Audience, is there any questions for the speaker? It is quite awesome, your presentation, sir. I learned a lot about businesses in Sri Lanka also. The special mention about the tea. Yeah, Sri Lanka is quite famous of their teas.
Absolutely.
Indonesia is also have so many tea variants, but maybe it's less famous compared with those from Sri Lanka. Maybe we could learn many things.
Yeah, there is, and I think Sri Lanka can learn a lot. I know a lot of tourism companies in Sri Lanka are learning from Indonesia and Bali. Honestly, last year for my honeymoon, I was in Bali, and there's so much our tourism sectors can learn from Bali as well.
Okay, Mr. Tharindu, there are 3 or 4 maybe question from the audience. The
Sure.
first one, why do you think sustainability is important for our generation and the future? And how can young people lead the way?
Yeah, I think when it's our generation, I can speak from the perspective of millennials, which is us. Because I'm a millennial, I'm 84 born, so I can't speak for generation Z. But I think because the millennials are like the first generation of consumers who have to consume bearing in mind the pressures of the environmental damage and consume in an era where there is a lot of information about environmental damage. Most of our parents in their times of consumption, all this information, awareness about climate change and all was not there. So this awareness has shaped our thinking and our attitudes. And if you look at Generation Z, we see that even more, simply because they grew up in an era, especially in their teenage years, like let's say in the 2010s, the 15s. That was also when the amount of information about the damages to the environment was spreading massively. So that is what is driving their attitudes towards sustainable consumption and sustainable brands. On another note, why and how the younger generation can lead the way, I think they are already leading the way in terms of demanding to know more about what is being done for sustainability and making sustainable choices. We all already see them interacting with things like, if you look at young travelers, they go and interact with homestays, and that way they are helping the community. Some touristic cities in Sri Lanka, they have most like 90% of the tourists go and stay with in homestays because they want to support the smaller community. So I think already it is happening, and it can be done by more conscious consumption decisions.
Okay. Maybe I can jump into the second question, sir.
Sure.
Okay. The second is, what's your favorite example of company or individual making a positive impact on the environment? What can we learn from them?
All right, I think that's quite a good question. I think I can't give. I don't know the name, but I'm quite sure I can find the name. But this is one school in Indonesia, right? One school in Indonesia where this was featured in Zac Efron's a movie about the planet. He spoke about this school in Indonesia that is run in a complete sustainable manner, where children are educated on life skills, children are educated to make ideal use of the environment. And I think something to that would be a very good example in your own country, in Indonesia, how like a group of individuals is actually helping to educate the next generation about what can be done in terms of the planet and how to minimize the impact. Because if you start at a very young age, if you start educating these younger people, younger generations at a young age, I think they will go on to achieve much better results. So I think that one of my favorite examples would be that that Indonesian school. If you have Netflix, you will see that. I think it was the second. It's called Down to Earth. Down to Earth is the name of the series. and they featured an Indonesian school, which I felt was massive potential and shows the way forward on how we can educate the younger generations. It's called a New Earth School, I believe. Yeah, it was called New Earth School. But there are a few examples like that in Indonesia. But this was the one featured in that series, Down to Earth by Zac Efron.
Okay. Maybe I can read the third question.
Sure,
sir?
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The third and the last question: how can schools, social media platforms, or influencers inspire young people to prioritize sustainability in their lives?
Sorry, come again.
How can schools, social media platforms, or influencers inspire young people to prioritize sustainability in their lives?
Okay, I think let's look at the school part first. Yesterday, Australia became the first country in the world to ban social media for kids of 16 and below, right? I personally think keeping social media away from school children is the way forward, because there's so much of wrong information being spread via social media, which really can affect their thinking, how they look at the world. So, and it kind of reduces their thinking because you're bombarding them from one direction, one angle, and all these social media companies, they have their own agendas and their own political agenda. So clearly, school kids need to be kept away from social media is my honest opinion. Influencers, I think we see a rise of organic influencers or influencers who are looking at promoting ethical marketing and looking at promoting like different marketing measures which are into right sense of business. Like personally, once again from my own experience, my wife is an influencer, and many times I've seen how before she takes up a certain project, she has a discussion with me on what kind of a business is this. If I promote this, am I actually promoting sustainability or not? Will I be helping a company or promoting a company that is harmful to the environment or harmful to the society? I've seen that thinking process going on, and she's a Gen Z. So I think we see a rise of influencers who are actually being concerned about the planet and who are looking at working with and promoting brands, businesses which are only sustainable. Just as much as how we have ESG indices, which are like a list of companies you can invest in, which are actually doing good for the planet. So I think influencers need to start making that conscious choice and saying, look, I'm only going to work with businesses that are sustainable, that are properly reporting their emissions, that are properly looking into their any negative social impact and working on it. And that way, when you promote a brand, people will know if this person is promoting it, then definitely it must be something that is actually good for us. So I think there's a massive market scope and space for influencers of sustainable brands in Sri Lanka and even in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tharindu Ameresekere, for the extraordinary explanation today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the audience also for the questions. I think this is the last for our second session, and maybe we can move to our next speakers. Thank you very much, Mr. Tharindu Ameresekere.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure to be a part of it, and all the best for the rest of the conference. Thank you.